like I say, it just gets back to, use my phone to nail in, a nail. Like I could probably get that nail into this, wood desk with my phone, but then the phone is done. And all I've done is that one nail. And I would rather.
But I asked you, Sam, what you thought that what are the concrete losses that the squad would accrue if they were to withhold a vote for Nancy Pelosi. And so if you're saying that what you really would ask them to hold it out for is committee chairs, committee seats, and they went ahead and withheld the vote in order to get committee seats, well, then by definition, they couldn't even take away committee seats from them, right? Because they would have gotten them as part of their campaign. So what is it that we're so afraid of them losing? Because for me, it's not that I was so sure of the benefit, but there was just no downside to the thing. They already talk shit about Medicare for all. There's already billions of dollars of advertising against Medicare for all. The media is already against it. It can't get any worse than this. So what is the downside to trying?
Well, I'm not convinced, frankly, that 5 freshman or sophomore Congress people or 6 or whatever, preventing Pelosi from getting this. I know you're convinced that people that somehow, despite the media imbalance and despite the conventional wisdom,
don't talk about the upsides, because I don't know about the upsides either. My question right now is, what are the downsides?
I'm saying the downsides. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in that standoff, I'm not convinced that they wouldn't pay a massive price in terms of their popularity. I think that there may be a lot of people who turn against them, who are somewhat supportive, and to the extent that they have. I mean, I understand the calculus that they have power, presumably, holding over Pelosi, but I'm not convinced that Pelosi wouldn't have just called their bluff and to say, okay, you can be responsible for freezing the Democratic House. Good luck.
Just like the Republicans have no problem.
But they have a different constituency, don't they? The Republicans have Republican constituency.
I think that we have a constituency that wants that kind of fight and to be activated as well, but the Democratic Party doesn't court them. We talk constantly on the left about there being 40 million people who don't vote, and all of these working class people who don't vote, and all of these working people, longtime labor families that used to be Democrats for generations, and now they've went ahead and voted for Trump, the Obama to Trump voter. We talk and talk and talk about these people, and never once does it seem to occur to us that maybe if we acted with a little more tenacity, maybe if we acted like we were fighting for people in the way that people thought Donald Trump was, the way he presented himself as being, that we could actually grow our ranks, that we could have more persuasive power, that doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 30 years of neoliberalism ain't it.
I agree, but I just don't think that holding up a vote for a vote that's going to lose in the House.
No, Sam, stop. In this scenario, I'm asking you to design your perfect ask. It can be anything you want. Ask for anything.
That would be worth the thing. I mean, I can tell you what I think would be the good ask, but what I cannot tell you is exactly how I would assess, if I was one of those members of Congress, what the chances that Nancy Pelosi, I don't know. But it's not inconceivable to me that there was an attempt to leverage more, and Nancy Pelosi goes, "Go fuck yourself."
Right, but it's not leverage.
You want to be out there? Good luck. Good luck with what's going on out there.
But you're not doing it, and until you publicly withhold the vote. Like the point of this, the force the vote is not some backroom deal that they always are doing and always negotiating. The whole persuasive value of force the vote is that they publicly humiliate Nancy Pelosi by not voting for her.
Your perception is that they're going to humiliate Nancy Pelosi and not themselves.
Yes, they're going to. No, regardless of what happens to the squad, Nancy Pelosi is humiliated if it's a public knowledge that she wasn't able to secure a vote for speaker after how many ever years that she's been in this seat.
You don't think it's going to be
upstart squad members declined to vote for her?
You don't think it's
a huge story? That's
huge.
It's
going to be impossible for the Democratic establishment to alienate Democrats from figures like Cory Bush and AOC or
I
Ilhan
don't think.
Omar.
Well, hang on about that. I don't think the Democratic establishment can afford, if properly organized, can afford to alienate its own base any more than the Republican establishment can afford to alienate
I don't think they
its trumpet
should do
base.
that, but I mean,
They can't go from celebrating, oh, look at our diversity and oh, look at the first openly gay elected, blah, blah, blah. They can't go from all of that to the next day. Remember the timing of all of this. That we won Georgia. Look at Mondaire Jones and look at Ossoff and Warnock. They can't turn from that and suddenly be like, yes, the two Muslim squad members, all these black and brown people, women, hashtag believe us, all the whole the Democrats have set themselves up because they've built this edifice of identity politics and how wonderful all of these young new upstarts are because they're good for the Democratic Party brand. They cannot execute a pivot that fast to try to tell us that at the same time they're all horrible. At the same time, they're doing it in defense of someone as reviled as
they
Nancy
wouldn't
Pelosi.
be just saying it. They would be saying they are holding up the seating of Nancy Pelosi, of a Democrat, as Speaker of the House, and for what?
I'm glad you asked that because here's a part of it that I think was missing. I really wish we could have been having these kinds of conversations before force the vote. I'm not saying that to you, but I wish that this had been where we landed because these are strategic concerns that I think are so important. I think it was important for the squad to come, or whoever progressives got involved in this, to pick a substitute for Nancy Pelosi that made Democrats look bad if they rejected them. Now, I know Barbara Lee said that she didn't want to do it, but I don't really care. Optically, I think the Force the Vote campaign should have done this too in retrospect. Just say it's Barbara Lee. Because look at the context that we're in. First of all, Barbara Lee is a black woman. She's a progressive. She's very well esteemed. She has seniority. Additionally, we just came off at the same time as Force the Vote was percolating, this leaked tape of Joe Biden being openly hostile and disrespectful to every single member of every leader of a black, whatever you call it, civil rights group in the country, right? Just openly contemptuous of them. So there's a world where you could have gotten a lot of black punditry and maybe even some black political figures also behind you on this and done some solidaristic outreach to the Black Lives Matter community and other criminal justice advocate groups to say, this is retribution. You have to give us this. The Democratic Party has disrespected and looked down on black people for so long, including in this moment. We need a new Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi plans to retire soon anyway. Why can't we have a leader like Barbara Lee?
What if Barbara Lee comes out and says, I don't want it?
Right, but then they have to make an argument for why it shouldn't be someone who is more diverse and more progressive instead of playing this game that they always play with Nancy Pelosi, which is because she's a woman. Anything against her is an attack.
What if Barbara Lee came out and said, I don't want it?
She might.
Well, there's your argument as to why it shouldn't be Barbara Lee.
Right, but Barbara Lee then
that was the problem we had in 2018, right? I mean,
imagine this.
She dropped out of the race, essentially, and there was nobody to vote for.
Barbara Lee does an interview. First of all, I could be one of the members of the squad if they were really committed to this plan, and it should be. But whomever, I mean, they're all black and brown too, but
it would be a tough sell that they should be Speaker of the House in their first year of.
Who cares?
I mean,
let's have a public conversation about whether or not we should just follow blindly norms, or whether we should live in a world where people who actually represent the interest in the policy goals of a majority of Americans should be in a leadership position as opposed to just the oldest person there.
But I mean, listen, Brie, I think that there is. I think it's an interesting conversation, and we're talking about a general theory about this.
Isn't that our job, Sam? What else do we have to do?
I do. I think this is very valuable. This exchange, and I guess I think like there are institutional things. It's sort of the Machiavelli's. If you come for the king, or in this case the queen, make sure you take her out, and because the strategy of trying or else what happens?
Because I've asked you this several times now. What happens to them?
I mean,
if
look,
they lose?
I haven't worked in Congress, so I don't have enough of awareness institutionally, but it's about resources that you can have access to in terms of money, in terms of staff, It could be committee positions. It could be you get an opportunity to introduce some amendments that, or you could get maybe some appropriations to go to your district because maybe you need to build a community center. I mean, there's a lot of books that outline the sort of transactional nature of these things that are
Yeah, I'm
obscured
aware.
from us.
There's a couple of them on the shelf behind
Of
me.
course, of course. So you recognize that there could
question
be for Congress people who want to get reelected, who want to be able to deliver material benefits for their constituents. Or maybe some of them, are like they want to be the person who gets out in front of the cameras. Whatever it is, there's no doubt that leadership has. We don't know,
we
don't know what the consequences
that's
are.
part of it.
Right.
With everyone is so willing to say we can't do this because the consequences are so high. And I'm sorry, you cannot make that argument if you can't even you can't even like put together a little bit of a cogent argument about what
I just did.
I mean, it depends. Well, I mean, it depends.
I want to say this. What's important is I said as part of the ask. That's why I started with the ask. You can ask for to ward off against any of those possibilities down the line. If you think you're going to lose committee appointments, make committee appointments part of your ask. If you think you're going to lose out funding to your district, stipulate that you are only going to get this vote if you get commensurate funding with what you got last year or whatever you asked for. The sky is the limit. And if you don't get it, then you just say, I'm going to dethrone Nancy Pelosi and put someone in her place with less power.